Welcome back everybody. So for now we haven't really done anything yet, but we did import our port scanner and now we are ready to start coding the main part of the program. So let's go to the vulnerability scanner right here, right click on it, click on the new and click on Python file. So all of this stuff we already learned, we know how to do it, and let's create a program which will be called vulscan.py. Now first thing that we want to do is of course to import our port scanner, which makes sure that it is in the same directory. That is important. And that is actually going to be the only library that we are going to need, since these two libraries, which are going to be the socket library and the IPY library, are already imported inside of this port scanner program. Alright, now you might notice once again that this IPY is actually red underlined, which means that this library does not exist inside of this virtual environment, and we already talked about this before. You need to actually pip3 install it inside of this virtual environment, so let's do that right away using our terminal. Make sure that you're using terminal inside of the PyCharm and simply just type pip3 install IPY. It will install a library for you, and as soon as it is finished you should no longer have this red underlined. Alright, so let's see. Here it is gone now, and now we have all of the libraries needed to complete our project. Alright, so let's go back to our main part of the program. We imported our port scanner, and now let's think about all of the things that we need in order to complete this project. So first of all, of course, we need the target that we are going to scan, so we want to prompt the user of this program for the target's IP address. So let's call it target's IP equals input. And we're going to actually ask the user for the input of this. So let's type it like this, and then we can add a star sign, enter target to scan for vulnerable open ports. Okay, so this will be the target's IP. Once again, we also want to make sure that this can be both IP address and the actual domain name, but we don't need to worry about that, as that part of the code is already located inside of our port scanner that we imported. So no need to code it once again. Let's just go to the next line, and also let's ask for the user for the number of ports that they want to scan. Now we didn't use it in our port scanner, so why not use it right here? Let's say they want to scan 100 ports and a different user wants to scan 200 ports. Let's add that as an available option as well. So port number will be equal to the input. And in the second line, we prompt the user for the amount of ports you want to scan. And let's also notify them inside of the brackets that 500 will mean first 500 ports. Okay, so in case they get confused, they know what they need to specify. Alright, now another important thing that we need to do about this line is we need to make sure that this port number is an integer value. For example, if the user specifies number 100, it will be stored inside of this port number, but it will be stored as a string and not as an integer. Therefore, we need to wrap this entire part inside of an integer function, and this integer function simply just converts whatever is inside of the brackets into an integer value. Keep in mind that you will get an error in case the actual user of this program specifies a string. For example, they type the word tree. Well, that word will not get converted to an integer because that is not possible. Therefore, this will only work if the user specifies the actual number, which should be the case, as we are indeed asking for a number. Therefore, we want to convert it to integer so our program can continue executing. Alright, so now that we got these two things out of the way, there is a third and last thing that we need to ask the user before we actually start running the main part of the program, and that is going to be the actual file from which we're going to read vulnerable softwares. So for this program to run, we need a file. As I mentioned at the beginning of this section, we need a file that is going to store vulnerable software names that then we're going to compare with the softwares running on open ports. So we're going to call that, for example, vul_file, and it will be equal to the input Oops, let's add the double quotes. So to the input, and then we prompt to user enter path to the file with vulnerable softwares. Okay, so now that we finished everything, these are 3 things that we need in order to run this program. Let's print also the new line character. So right after this, we can have a little bit better view. And now we want to use the port scanner onto our program. All right, so we're simply just going to call the function port scanner.scan onto the target's IP. Okay, now, if you think about this a little bit, you will notice that this will not actually work. Now, why this will not work? Well, there are a few problems with our port scanner, not with the port scanner itself, but with the way that we imported it and that we are going to use it inside of our vulnerability scanner. So first of all, we got a problem with this port number variable. We cannot really paste it into our scan function, as our scan function only takes 1 parameter. So that is the first problem, as we don't really have a way to actually tell the port scanner that we want to use this exact amount of ports. So that is the part that we also need to edit inside of our port scanner. Now another thing that we want to do is we want to convert this entire actual port scanner into a class. And we also want to get rid of some of the functions that we don't need. And also we want to get rid of this part of the program. Since there is a lot to do with this port scanner, we're going to leave that for the next tutorial. So in the next tutorial, we're going to cover this port scanner and convert it to the best possible way for us to use it inside of our vulnerability scanner. And then we're going to continue from there. Alright, so for now, we simply just prompted the user for the needed things. And in the next video, we're going to cover the port scanner and how we can convert it the best way possible. See you there and take care. Bye.